It's Mr. Bruner. Today we're going to be looking at getting started in Solidworks. First thing that we're going to have to do is I'm going to be remoting into it. So we're going to open up our remote terminal. We're going to log in through the windows.wpi.edu and your WPI account, and you're going to be prompted with the virtual machine here. From there, you're going to open up Solidworks, and you should have a blank screen ready to rock and roll. So we are going to go ahead and click on a new document. From there, you're going to get multiple options. These are very similar if you're familiar with Onshape. We can create a part, an assembly, or a drawing. So we're just going to get started with a part and hit the OK button. Today what we're going to get started on is making the die that we've done in Onshape before. I know the dimensions off the top of my head, but if you need to go back into the drawings, go ahead and take a look at those. So you can see that some of the things around us are similar, but definitely somewhat different. So when we're prompted, there are no work planes to start off with, but we can see in our features tree that there are planes and an origin. Up top here, you can see that we have ribbons that we can click on. Some of these are starting with your sketching tools. We also have our features tools, which we're going to be coming back to with our revolve and extrude. And then we have some other ones that we'll get into with some higher level work in the future, primarily the simulation stuff. So to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to come to our sketch, and we can go ahead and click on our sketch right here. This is going to create a new sketch for us. As soon as that's clicked on, our work planes pop up, and we can start to create something from here. Just as normal, we can highlight and click the one that we're going to work off of. Once we click on that, it reorients itself, automatically coming normal to view, and the planes automatically disappear. We are left behind with our little origin, and we can navigate similarly, but not quite the same as in Onshape. This is really going to work best if you have an external mouse, because a lot of it's based off of the center click and hold. So now in order to orbit, we can go ahead and click and drag on our center mouse. If we hold the control key and click and drag, it gives us our pan. And then our mouse scroll in and scroll out will be our zoom. So we're going to go ahead and just get started with the base of the die. So we're going to come up here to our rectangle tool, and I'm just going to use a center point rectangle. You can use an edge to edge. If you actually notice on the drop down of this, they give you more options within the rectangle tool itself compared to other CAD or some other CAD programs. So center point rectangle. I'm going to go ahead and grab onto my center point and drag it out. Now once we start creating this, you can see some of the constraints that are already created. I'm off on a slight angle, that's why it doesn't quite look like a square. And over here on the side, we have our rectangle tool, and it actually is showing us way more options for this rectangle than what we might be familiar with. So we can actually customize each of the points, or the origins, or nodes, however you want to call them, and where they are in space, if that's important. We can also classify where the center point is, since we're on our origin. We have 0, 0. And then there's some other transformation tools. You can see I'm using the center point rectangle. We can also do corner rectangles and any of these other ones. And then we have some of our other relations, which might be important later on. So now that I have that, we can see we have our base rectangle, but we need to specify the size. So we can come up here to our Smart Dimension tool, and we can start to dimension off of things. Click on it and post it, and we are going to create this 5 inches and hit enter, and it should automatically update. Just like other tools, we can also click on 2 different lines and drag out, and it will also allow us to specify the size between those two. Once we have our rough shape, we can then go to the extrude. Now there's 2 ways that we can get to the extrude. The first one is by simply just bouncing to the features, and then there's the extrude. We can do this immediately, or we can actually exit out, which is the second way. We exit out of our sketch and then do the extrude. Doesn't matter the order, I'm going to go ahead and do it right here immediately. You'll see that we get a small preview in yellow. We also get a handle, that way we can pull it up, and we get some of our other options of what we can do with our extrude. So we have our selection plane here, so it's going from our sketch plane. We're going blind, and right now we're only going 0.1. We'll change that in a second. But then we also have direction 2, thin features, and some other things. We're just going to be concerned with how far we're going right now. So we're going to set this to 5 inches and hit the OK button. It previews it for us initially, and we can either hit the enter button or the green checkbox, and it will apply it. Now, unlike Onshape particularly, we have only one single feature here in the features tree, but there's a little drop down arrow, and there is our sketch. So Onshape does a great job trying to organize everything on the side, but it's really important for you to know where everything is going to be. So we now have our cube, and we can start to put the dots on it. So this process will just repeat: sketch, new sketch. We can click on the top plane. If you need to orbit around, or if you need to come normal to view, you can right click and hold, and you can see that you're actually going to get some tools. Or you can come up to some of your view options up here, and you can try and mess around with that. I'm just going to keep going. Circle, this is going to be right in the center. We are going to smart dimension that to 1 inch. And then this is where things get a little bit different than Onshape. We can't actually emboss or just do a regular extrude on this one because we actually want to remove material. So we have to consciously tell it to do the extrude cut feature. It's not the same thing that we can just reverse. So now it's going to say, all right, here's your circle. It's automatically picked it for us, and it's going to actually try and cut all the way through it. We don't want to do that. We just want it to go down 0.25, hit enter, and then enter to apply it. And now we have our hole going into the top. We can then go ahead and create a new sketch on the front. We are going to do 2 circles here and here. And just like before, we can actually click on both of them, and it's going to try and pop up with add relations and some other things that we can do. If we click on, hold shift and click on both of them, and you're going to see that we can add relations that allow us to work with them. So I actually want both of these to be equal to each other. That way when I come in and use my smart dimension, set them to 1, they will both move together in that capacity. I can then continue to do the smart dimensions as I've done before. This should be 7/8 from the edge. Solidworks will do fractions just as Onshape does. It'll do simple equations. And it'll pop itself into position. Now, while I'm here on this face, you can see we can individually dimension each of them, but we can also do construction lines like we've done in Onshape before. So all we have to do is draw a line going from corner to corner, but instead of actually using a tool up here, we can actually click on it, and then it'll actually, over here in the line properties, we can say it's for construction, and you can see it automatically turns it to that dash. This will allow us to drag, place something onto it, and now it's automatically constrained to it, and we can go ahead and smart dimension from the center to the edge, and since we have this set to 45 degrees, it will only take 1 dimension to lock it into place as it moves up the line. Now we can go ahead and come to our features, to our smart extrude, and this will allow us to remove both of those to the step that we want them to. Now when we go ahead and want to go and change something, all we have to do is come into our part, and we can find the sketch that it's located on, as we've done in the past, and we can right click on it and edit the sketch. This is the most guaranteed way to do what you wanted to do. You should also be able to double click on it, but that is not always guaranteed. Usually I've had some issues where you end up modifying the sketch, but it doesn't refresh as quickly as you want it to, especially since we're running on a virtual machine. So those are some tips and tricks that you can use to get yourself off the ground and using SolidWorks. This is going to be really helpful if you plan on using any type of simulation tool through the program. That way everything is right here in one location. If you ever have any issues, comment, or come and find me, and I'd be happy to answer them for you.